Hello everyone, welcome to Epic Work Items Sync Weekly. It's 15th of February and we have first blocker slash discussion item by Nicholas.
Do we start by blockers? Okay, so we're working on the syncing part, doing pretty good progress, and huge thanks to Eugenia about that. So we have two blockers for self and for SaaS right now. One is already unblocked. The first one is the group level metrics that we still record for, that we still, analyze for issues, and this would affect with the migration, it would affect the group level metrics. We can enable it for our own groups because we don't care about these metrics. So this is unblocked. Thanks, Amanda, for commenting. And however, we are blocked to roll out the migration for non-GitLab owned groups. So it would be great that if you could fix it and not account for Epic work items as part of the group level metrics, or differentiate between work item types. Alessandro, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I was just making sure. I know Amanda commented on that uh, thread, but I didn't see the optimized PM comment on that. So if I don't know if they should be giving some of the feedback or not. If we are unblocked, I'm super happy because we can enable it on some of the groups on production and test it out and things like that. It's just I don't want to jump ahead and enable it and then we figure out that we should have not. But like
I
if
thought
we
that I think Chaim did respond and he said he liked the labeling it as work items, didn't he? And including it.
I think that was more of a comment into how we should ideally implement it, but it was not a response onto like, should we enable it for the specific groups right now or not? But maybe I'm misreading that. So that's why I want to make sure I'm on the same page with everyone.
So the question is, so you understand what to do with the analytics pages, but the question is whether we should enable it on the groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought I commented that it was okay to move forward with internal groups that we
Okay.
manage.
Exactly. We are unblocked for internal groups, but we are still blocked for non-internal groups. So
Okay.
until Optimize or whoever groups wants to do this,
Okay.
fill this out.
Melissa, the TLDR is there's two pages in admin settings.
Sorry,
It
this is not
shows
about
like,
admin. This is about the group. They're two different things. This is
yeah,
about the
but
group level
enabling it
analytics.
in the group, isn't it blocked by getting that analyze work done? Like, aren't we concerned about enabling it for customer facing
Yes, yes. On SaaS, yeah.
on, well, I guess on SaaS, customers can't see admin, right?
That's what I mean. There are two things. One is for SaaS, where you can see the group level metrics. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about right now.
Oh, the
And
group level, not the admin
yeah,
level. Got it. I'm
exactly.
sorry about that. Okay, so Melissa, the TLDR is on group level analytics. There's like usage, like I think what is it, like count of issues created or something like
Yeah.
that, which is currently including issues and incidents. I don't know how incidents got in, but it is. As soon as we migrate epics, it's going to also include epics. And the question already went out to Chaim, how do you want to handle this? And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe in the thread he said, let's go with the just relabel it work items, like a general term, so that, and we'll just let it flow. However, Chaim can't schedule it anytime soon, the work. And so we could schedule it to do it, but it's not our skill set. So the question is, what do you think about rolling this out to all SaaS groups, even though the chart is going to say count of issues? Or should we wait
Uh,
until that's done?
I think we should relabel it. I don't know to what. Um, just the title of the chart. And that calls into question a lot of things of like whether that chart even makes sense to like track all work items being created. So that would be something to figure out. But if
Should
it's just for
we ask?
labeling, Oh, go ahead, Jackie.
I was gonna say, should we ask someone in UX? Because I don't know if Libor, I see Libor mentioned on the thread, but not responding. I'm not sure if there's, maybe we need to have him take a look
I
and
only tagged Haim.
But
What's
it doesn't
that?
make any sense. Like, I mean, if we call them work items, because as far as the customer is concerned, they're not yet work items. This is just technical work we're doing in the background to sync epics to the work items too. They have no idea this is going on. So they're going to see this like new thing. It's called work items. Their epics are somehow counted as them. Doesn't make any sense, right? Like, so we should just exclude them in the meantime.
Probably
Yeah,
the
my other
simplest,
question is like,
I
are
think.
tasks included now? So I imagine they would have the same problem. Yes. And we've heard feedback, definite feedback about that it's like, it's problematic for customers when tasks are included in counts that they expect only issues to be in, because issues represent sort of like an atomic end-to-end unit of work. And that's generally what they want to measure in these graphs. And I imagine it would feel the same way about higher level work items.
Okay, so the desire is to filter out. Are we meant to fix the problem of other things besides issues as well at the same time? So I can be clear in the issue.
I would say yes. I imagine the work is very similar, and I don't think there's significant extra. And engineering, if there is, let me know.
Okay, so
Can
Nicholas,
we?
then we're. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's the long-term plan, right? Because once people can customize work item types, then it's not going to be called issues anymore either. So are we just tabling fixing the long-term thing for later?
Seems
I
like
think
it.
we need to get a customer point of view on what the long term is. And I imagine that will take some research, like intentional scheduling of that and so forth. And I think that will take longer than what we want in this group for the purpose of epics.
Okay.
Okay, so to recap then, moving forward for both the admin and the group level metrics, we will filter out all records that aren't issues. That's the direction. Then for the rollout to SaaS groups, GitLab.com groups, we should wait until this is completed, except internal groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And Gabe, for the longer term, like I definitely have seen reports where it's like it's this similar thing, but you can filter by type. I rarely ever see like types intermingled because they mean really different things, and it just doesn't make sense to have them together.
So then
That
all
makes
this
sense.
would be escalated onto optimize, or is it something that the singing group should take on? Because that's a slightly different skill set. There is something else going on there. Can we escalate optimize?
I'm asking Haim now if they're able to schedule this, and if they are, when would they be able to? I know the last thing he cited was too far out, but I'm going to ask again. And then Kushal, I'm going to copy you and ask you as well if we're
So
able to take it on.
Just to clarify, this is blocking any of the even basic fields backfilling, right? Because we cannot create issue records for the epics because they all count as whatever. So we cannot move on with the associations and whatever work is being going on until we backfill the first part of the epics, which is the basic fields.
Given
Yes, you can
it's
move on with
blocking
associations,
everything.
I think. Sorry, internet is a little bit bad today. I think we can move forward with associations, but yeah, creating the work items will be a problem.
No, yeah,
Okay,
on development, we could just not have it on production. So like we cannot do the production thing with all of that.
Yes.
And we don't have any sense for how big of a change this is, how the change that's needed on this graph.
I think the biggest challenge
think
was the performance issue of how to filter down those things. But yeah, I guess Felipe would. I'm sorry.
Yes, I think it's not much effort. Like Alexandra said, maybe there will be a problem with some index or something like this, the filtering, but should not be too much work.
Okay, so Kushal, I'm going to ask if he has the ability to take it into the current milestone, and if not, if we could have somebody on our side do it, but to pair with somebody on his side in case there's like blockers or specific knowledge needed. Is that okay?
Yeah, we can have someone from our team pair on this work. But yeah, taking up this entirely in our team would be a challenge given the capacity because we already have a couple of team members working on the migration efforts.
Okay. Who's the engineering manager for Optimize?
Brandon.
Thank you.
I'm gonna add this as an action item for the next meeting, if that's okay. I've also put it under decisions taken because we haven't really been using that part of the agenda too much. So it makes sense to try and capture some of these things.
Good. The next blocking item that will be resolved with engineering from our side. We don't want to. So when we start syncing and creating these new Epic work items from the legacy ones and copy it over, for example, for internal groups only, and we make them available to look at, I do not want to make it available to edit them because this could get out of sync and I don't want to produce any data that we might need to clean up later on. So the solution to this is every Epic work item right now that gets created from a legacy one is read-only, except of course for the campaign and the group we want to allow where it's like an Epic work item only world. But thanks to Eugenia for creating the issue, and we will implement it. This is like not a blocker for product, just for us to be aware of before we enable it in production. And the other blocker that is a bit farther ahead, but also needs attention, I guess, from Optimize is on self-managed. This is the admin usage trends. This is the other analytics part, which is only for admins. We don't care about it on GitLab.com, but self-managed customers might. So also another thing where we need to filter out issues on the admin part, like admin analytics part. So fix is already proposed, and we have still a bit of time because we don't want to enable the migration on the self-managed instances yet. Just something that needs to be scheduled. Maybe not the next 1 to 3 releases, but rather next or maximum after 16.11 if this exists.
Do you want to keep this separate from the group level analytics or just bundle them together? Because it's surely a similar change.
Yeah, it sounds similar, but they're separate. They're separate in the code, but it's a similar problem, just on a different level. And the group level change is blocking us actively in production, while the other one is only for self-managed. So we have like a bit more time.
I think this last one, the usage trends one, is a bit more complicated to solve because if I remember correctly, this is saved like aggregations. So periodically you take aggregations and save it to a table. So this will probably take more time than the other one, than the group analytics one.
Okay. Good. Do you want to follow up with the discussions, John?
Real quick, can I ask a question on, we're on, what is it, 2A, 2B? Is that where we're at?
2B, yes.
Right here?
What
I'm highlighting. Oh no, what I just totally messed up. All right. So for like how long would Epic work items be in the read-only state?
Until we are completely able to read and write from the Epic work item through legacy Epic. So once we are able to read everything from the once we are able to read and write everything from the Epic work item through the legacy Epic, we can enable it again. actually once we start reading from it, yeah.
Okay. Do we have kind of a yes as
That's the end goal. That's like
goal.
when everything is done with the migrations.
Okay.
I have that comment with the work split in phases, so I'll link it here. But it's the phase 3 basically of this syncing stuff. Is when we read and write to the work item side bit like through the epics, through the legacy epics, right? So we use the legacy epics APIs, but behind the scenes we read and write to the work item side.
Okay. And will we add something to the work item APIs that lets us know if there is a synced, like if there's a sync attachment to it or a sync association to that work item?
I don't think we need to, because like there should be one. And if not, it should be created and so on.
No. There could be a case that there is no legacy epic associated. Because
Yeah,
this
like
is the case for the campaign, like this group that is work item only.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
in
that,
those cases, we can still edit it. If it doesn't have an attached legacy epic, you can still edit, and the work item will behave as normal. It's only when that work item is being synced with something else that we don't want to edit it until the stage 3.
Yeah. So where will that logic be? Like if we attempt either through the API or through the UI to edit a group level work item that has an associated legacy epic to it, is that going to error out, or are we going to?
It would return an error. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe some complexities. We can discuss that, I think, in the issue, how we want to.
Yeah, this is something we were talking earlier, I think, about not enabling work item at epics if this feature is enabled. If the feature flag is enabled, also disable creating work item epic. Except for a group that is being tested. And in that case, we will not do the syncing. So it's one or the other, I think. There's a possibility of something we could do.
Yeah, I think that's feasible. I think that, that would work. Because I'm just trying to think through like the situation that we currently have for plan stage where we're doing both. But yeah, I think we discussed that we don't need to do that if we have this campaign that'll be kind of completely separate and we won't commingle legacy epics and work item epics.
Yeah, I think the idea would be replicate that you don't have epics anymore. Like they're gone, just disappear, and then.
But in the long term, we'll create a legacy epic, right? In the stable state, we'll create one for every work item created, and that way you can still access them through the APIs until we're okay. Cool. That's a nod in heads. Like I'm glad.
So that's as it's at the stage that we're writing on the work item, not only creating and editing the work item itself. And the option of creating epics should have disappeared at that stage as well.
Yeah, cool.
John, you have the discussion item.
Yeah, so that's basically it. I wanted to make sure because it seemed like there was some confusion during the week. I think I added this last week. That we're all agreed that that is the state that we're trying to get to, like with the working group at least. Like the purpose of the working group should be to shut down the working group, right? And I think at that point, like there's no special effort required. We can maintain that state for a long time. where boards roadmaps still work, but they use the old API, where we have a legacy epics table, but it only has tiny rump items with IDs and issue IDs and so on. And everything is synced to the work item which people interact with. But it looks like everyone agrees with that is what we're aiming for. So cool. Shall your items discuss async?
Yeah, so most of the questions I had are already answered. I just wanted to understand some things around it, especially for planning roadmap and boards development further. One of the things I would still like to weigh in. So Eugenia and I discussed it at length that we want to offer customers to test this out, but we want to make sure that we offer pilot only after we are done with the migration efforts, because one of the challenges that we would have is the moment we offer this test group to customers where they can create epic work items right from the get-go, we need to make sure that every work item that they create at a group level, there's a corresponding epic record as well. And that is possible once we are done with the migration syncing. So depending on how the timelines work, because our goal to offer to our customers is within this quarter, if I'm not wrong, right? And
Yeah, that was with the condition. Sorry, only
yeah,
if
so
we need to have a synced legacy epic, and that's needed for having all the features. So roadmap and boards. So if we want to do a demo of how the entire work item epic will work, we will need to be able to sync them. The only way to do it earlier would be if we don't sync the legacy epic at all. And that would mean that the only thing working would be listing the work item epics and the page, the show page of the epic. That would be the only thing working, because we wouldn't have legacy epics anymore.
yeah, so we did decide that we, as a part of pilot, it would be communicated that roadmap and boards won't be working on these groups, and users won't be able to create legacy epics, which is why we discussed that should we prevent users from creating legacy epics on such test groups or not. But if we are okay with customers not having access to those features, and we would also have to determine what would be the path forward once they are done with the experiment. I believe we can safely ask them that any data that they create as a part of these test groups will be discarded. It is not something that will continue working once the migration is ready, because there won't be a corresponding legacy epic for the work items that they have created as a part of experiment, right?
You want to backfill that. So the data would work in the future.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
it could
do
be backfill to make it work once the migration is finished. We would have to copy every work item they created and create the legacy epic, the skinny one. That would be the one to make it work, but only work until when the migration is finished.
Did we decide that because that's something the product I think need to be aware of, is that like we're either communicating to customers that these epics are ephemeral and will go away at any time. In other words, we're going to wipe them, or we're communicating to customers that, yeah, during this pilot, if they create epics, eventually those epics will be viewable on boards, eventually in roadmaps through the APIs and so on. These are two very different things. So I think, yeah, maybe we could make a decision around that as well.
Yeah, the preference obviously would be that they are viewable, but it would be good to understand the cost to make that happen and see if it's worth doing that work for a very select pool of people, right? It won't be a large part of the population that'll be in the state.
It's a much simpler backfill than the one we're currently doing, but it's a backfill nonetheless.
It's much simpler, but it's a backfill because the issues table is bigger. You need to filter, so it has its own complexities. But the amount of data that needs to be backfilled will be smaller, that's for sure. But it does have its own complexities. It's not as complex as what we're doing right now. That's for sure.
On a very similar note, in point 5, we've started thinking about just all the different options. We've been talking a lot about this first phase, right, where it's a preview, capacity, etc. But there's more steps along the journey, I will say, of like completely rolling this out. So Amanda put together sort of a list of things we could do, right, to roll this out. It's just like all the different options. Doesn't mean we're going to do all of them, but we need input from y'all to see how much effort some of these are, like how much doable they are. So we're hoping to get someone to be DRI to partner with us in basically hashing out the entire rollout plan, to see like what that would look like.
Yeah, we also have an objective for it on the engineering side, but I don't have any KORs. Like I don't have a way to break it down because I don't know yet, apart from hiding boards and roadmaps, well, like what technical work is going to be involved in the experiment. Um, but it might be good to get a DRI who's not currently on a major work stream, to be the DRI for this.
Yeah, and to be clear, this would be like, okay, we have an experiment version in SaaS. What comes after that? At some point, we default it to new users, maybe, right? At some point, we migrate data for smaller customers. At some point, we do larger ones, right? Like we need to get all those steps out and try to project, hopefully, like when are we done? Is it next quarter at the end? You know, it's hard right now to know what that looks like.
If nobody else volunteers, like I can help with that part, but I'll maybe leave it async and see if anyone wants to be the DRI for that.
Nicholas, you want to verbalize the point?
Yeah. So just rephrase what I discussed with you, Kushal. So this ability to have a group that is only having work items, I think it should be a separate work stream. That's what I just proposed. And I think John agrees he wanted to add more work streams anyway. So while what we're currently working on with the sync and the migration is not really helping with this experiment or like this work item only campaign. And so we should have a separate work stream that we can work in parallel. And it also will help us in like 2 months also when we hopefully finished with the migration, that we have this work already. And John, you didn't want to have one work stream more, but you have 3 more work streams for us.
Yeah, well, 2 more. So as the way I was thinking about it was that the technical work basically goes like feature parity, which we've already completed mostly apart from colors and due dates. Syncing, which is currently in progress, then backfilling, then delegation from the legacy object to the work item, and then finally the final bidirectional backfill thing, or not backfill, the bidirectional sync thing where we like ensure that a legacy epic is created for every work item. At that point, we're done, right? And all they have to happen in that order, but they don't have to be worked on in that order, right? Like they just have to be executed in that order. And so I thought, like, since work stream 1, 2, and 3 mapped to the first 3 phases of that, like that work streams 4 and 5 could now be entered in the agenda, and we could maybe ditch work stream 1 from being reported on or whatever you want to call it every week. But I do agree that the customer pilot should be kind of its own thing because it needs to make like logical cuts from the progress of the technical migration, like at logical points. And also there's a little bit of extra work involved to like hide features that aren't going to work and maybe just do certain things that are going to make sense to the customer. Um, and so, yeah, I thought that maybe if we made it work stream 4, like it would interrupt that nice, like sequential migration that we had, like, which is already quite difficult to track. Not difficult to track, but difficult to coordinate between all the different people. But I'm open to ideas. I do agree. Maybe we should keep it as its own thing, and maybe have an item in the agenda for it each week as well.
I'm fine if it's workstream 6. And I like the breakup of delegation and this last backfill sync that you mentioned.
Yeah, actually, just coincidentally left a message for you and Eugenia on the KR as well, because I saw that you had rolled that work into the KR that you're both assigned to, and I suggested that we move that out and just use that KR to finish off the syncing and feature parity work that was left over from last quarter. And then in that way, we can like draw a line under that at a certain point and move on to this, like, because we know that this has to happen anyway after the backfill, right? Because you can't start delegating things when there might be no object to write or read from for some records.
I think we were considering that the delegation is not such a breaking point, but more as part of the syncing, because we we have to do this system where we first write to the legacy epic, then we read from both legacy and work item, and then we start writing. So it's like 3 steps. We won't just be reading from the work item immediately. And this might be something that Alexandru can explain better, but I think that this kind of is not something we can break, finish the work and start another one. And I think that's why we included it in the syncing stage, because the idea is that the legacy epic and the work item has the same data, and you can read from both having the same data. That involves all the code that's gonna fetch the data from where it is. It's not always gonna be in the legacy epic or on the work item. There's some data that's duplicated and some data that isn't. So the associations we are thinking now is the duplicated, but then we also have to sync all the associations that are not duplicated. That's labels, nodes, and I think that's why we put it in the same work stream. But yeah, obviously that work stream became quite big. So I don't know if there's such a clear cut, but I agree that it would be nice to split it.
Yeah, thanks for that. So does it make sense to split it at all, or just to have a large goal as part of work stream 2 then? What do you think?
Um, in my opinion, until we read only from the work item, that's when you know that they're both in sync. But that means kind of at the end of it, before backfilling. That's why we also have the API syncing inside of it, because we need to, the only time when we can make sure the API is working is when the epic is skinny and it has only the IED and the IID. And then at that stage, we will be writing and reading from the work item. So I don't know how we can split the work stream before that happens. But that's just the way I'm seeing it. Maybe Nicolas or Alexandru can see it in another way that can be split before that stage.
I think it's not like I think we could say that it's not like a new work stream for now, but maybe like a spike, and figure maybe next week we could decide if it's a work stream or not. Like give us some time to think through the possibilities of providing the epic work item experience without waiting for the later phase where we finish the backfilling. So yeah, I think Donald and I discussed this a bit in our one-on-one, and I think maybe we can think through this a bit more and maybe give the group an update maybe next meeting and, decide on whether we could provide this alpha for customers before the syncing happens, before the, yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't see as a blocker if we are only offering a work item without the board and roadmap. It was just about splitting it, but obviously, yeah, I don't think the work stream 6, if that's the one for the demo, I don't think we have to wait until level 6. It should be like a maybe 3.1 or 3B. Definitely can be done in parallel if we don't want the Epics features.
Yeah, so I think the test or the campaign is somewhere that definitely can be done in parallel to the syncing. Yeah, the suggestion was to track it separately so that we can have someone working on it outside of the syncing group, because we are at the capacity of doing that work already. So adding on top of that the campaign or the demo or whatever it is, it just adds a lot more to our plates, and we will just not have capacity to get it done. How we track it, doesn't really matter. It just because it feels like a parallel stream of work. It doesn't have blocking or too much blockage on the syncing. It can be tracked separately. That's the only thing. But otherwise, the technical details and the technical stuff that is happening is very much linked or in the same bucket as the syncing, right? We know about stuff, so we will welcome whoever wants to help us with doing that stream of work. It's just that it can be done in parallel, and it needs more capacity than what we have right now.
Because I think it's basically what we are on project management is kind of like working on right now, because we're working on group level work items and not really on the syncing part. So it is kind of what we already do. I think Mario is also working on some stuff like on the work item detail page and stuff like that. So I think it's just a matter of like organizing the work that we already do and provide it into some formal like update for this customer pilot thing.
Yeah, and just setting some guardrails that will not mix up with the syncing, right? So
yeah,
if it's a Epic work item, just don't allow it editing it, don't allow the Epic API, so things like that. So a lot of the guardrails on top of what we have right now for the campaign or demo thing. But otherwise, yeah, it's very much in line with the work items at the group level stuff.
So we are at time, but one quick question on that. Like, what's actually stopping us then from just giving this to customers for the pilot?
Only
like, apart from
the guardrails.
only what, sorry?
The guardrails to not
Yeah.
create epics in the same group, like legacy epics in the same group where we have work item epics. That's the only thing that's, I think, blocking us. Plus, like, you go to the epics page and you only see the work item epics instead of legacy epics.
Yeah, some of the feature parity, right? Some of the things that we will not have, like we can give it to customers. It's not that we will not support it. It should be supported. The thing is that some of the features will only be available to these customers when we are done with the migration itself, right? So now how long that migration takes us, that means that these customers that onboard on Epic Work Item only campaign will have to wait for the migration to finish until they can make use of the legacy, or they'll just have to lose their whatever data that have introduced as an Epic work item and stuff like that. So we will not be able to create that legacy syncing back, right, until we're basically done with the migration. But otherwise, the group level work item experience, if you want to call it that way, that should be totally accessible.
Do we need like a new feature flag for this, which is going to like hide the links to the Epic board and roadmaps and disable the ability to create legacy epics so that we can flick on that feature flag and then also turn on work item epics for a given group and then invite customers to that group. That's all it needs done, really, right? Okay.
Can this yes. I don't know if that's that small of work though, and it's all like throwaway stuff, which I guess is okay, but for like I don't know, for a campaign, I don't know how much work we want to put into that. Can we just create another work item type in this campaign instead of it being epics can be something else?
It's not throwaway work.
What's that?
Except for the feature flag check, nothing is throwaway work actually. Because it's like the work how it will be in the future when everything is migrated. That's what we're already doing.
The hiding of stuff, though.
Hiding of stuff, yeah.
We're not going to have anything hidden after the sync, though, right?
Oh, you no longer query epics, for example. You only query work items, so you hide the epics menu, and so we actually don't lose any work except for this check that the feature flag is enabled or not.
So rather than hide the actual views, hide the querying of the legacy epic table.
Hide everything that queries epics in with
Right, that's
REST
what I meant.
endpoints or graphical endpoints,
Right.
and only use work items.
Yeah, but we'll need to remove that once we are done with the migration, that code that hides, because we want to backfill back the legacy epics and stuff like that. So there is some throwaway work. The guardrails that we're talking about, those will need to be removed, but by the end of the migration, or at the end of the migration, not by the.
For what it's worth, the Epic 12801 is where we want to capture what the effort is for each of these things. So this discussion about what would have to happen, what's throwaway, what's the cost of the pilot, we would ideally like to capture there so that product can make a decision as to whether it's worth that cost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that with the Donald's idea where we create a different work item type, right? Is we basically don't need to create, I guess, all of these guardrails because that doesn't interact with the Epic migration itself in any way. You don't have to do the backfilling for the Epic work item only because that's a different type. Now, I don't know how that plays out when you are bringing also epics back into the mix, right? Now you have this extra work item type that I don't know how we call or what we do with it. But that's
a
way too
weird. I think that's a little bit weird to create a new type with a different name and then say,
what
just
about
like,
using?
pretend these are epics.
Yes. What about using issues?
So group level
that's
issue
what
may be
Heinrich
something
was
that
mentioning to me yesterday. Like we could technically have group level issues available as this campaign.
I think
It
it's
may
separate.
add for some complexities with like child issues and how we would handle that. But
I think it's a separate thing completely. Because it would be way different. Think about like what you ask people to do. It would be completely different if you're asking them to sort of like validate that epics meet their need in this new framework than to ask them to validate that group level issues make logical sense for their workflow. It's like completely different things from the user perspective.
Okay, but from the technical perspective, like it's a really elegant suggestion because like yeah, we did discuss this in product planning, I think like 2 years ago, right? And we discussed the possibility of having a feature which was like a single level epic that was called feature, right? And yeah, from the technical perspective, you don't have to hide anything. The customer isn't confused about the fact that epics this new Epic object is kind of cool, but I lost roadmaps and boards and lists and like so there's not this weird confusion as well. But again, yeah, it's totally a product decision, but from the technical side, it has a lot of advantages technically. But maybe the disadvantages for the customer maybe outweigh them.
Also, like most of our front end implementation does have type-based checks across the places. And the idea of customer testing is to gather feedback of how epics are eventually going to look like. And if we are not offering epics, and I mean, boards and roadmap are like broader features that can still be easier to communicate that they are coming, but we are still waiting on some things to be ironed out. But the rest of the epics needs to be presented as it is, particularly hierarchy widget, linked work items widget. And if customers are not able to use it just because we have introduced a new type and hidden a bunch of things, then the feedback that we are going to get is not going to be as much useful. We want to make sure that what we are offering is at least 60 to 70% of what the end result is going to look like, and gather the feedback for that 60 to 70% exposure that we have given them.
So what would a group level issue that can have hierarchies miss from an epic perspective? Like, how is it different from an epic then, except for the
exactly. Like, is that the point of this campaign, to get feedback on it? Because theoretically, when we release it, it should be at parity with legacy epics. So, like, we already have feedback.
It is different. There are definitely differences, right, between legacy epics and new epics in the look and feel, in some of the functionality. And that's what we want to get feedback on. And also for our perspective is like exercise, it's completely different behind the scenes, right? So like exercising this new code and like work on framework with this new paradigm, which we've done with tasks, right? But we haven't done it in production without just us doing it for like the hierarchy widget, for example. We've used it in OKRs, but I don't know if like any customer has used it. So I think the ultimate
without this
epic.
Yeah. I just think without the syncing, like it's so different from what is actually going to happen in production. That is there a whole lot of value in getting feedback from
That's
some of
what
these
we can
things?
determine, right? Like that's the discussion of like, maybe it makes sense to wait until syncing, right? To do some kind of preview. Maybe that's the answer. But that was what we're hoping to discuss in that epic that Amanda put together. A lot of it depends on the effort to sort of get to each of these stages and the amount of time, right? Like if it makes sense to expose it now and there's a little bit of work, right, to remove all these things, but syncing is going to take another 3 to 4 months to iron out, like I would rather expose whatever we have, right, and not wait another 3 to 4 months to get feedback on some basic decisions we've made about look and feel and functionality. But I think it would just depend on a lot of these different factors.
Yeah, I mean the alternative to this is to wait right to the end of this working group's life to release something to customers. And question is like at that point, do we want to be discovering all the tiny things that we missed? As like it's natural and always happens that we miss things. It's normal. And then it potentially extend by weeks at that point before we can deliver something to customers. So Donald and I both volunteered for DRI of that, like, so we'll figure that out, who's going to be DRI, and then maybe if we got an estimation of the work involved in running this pilot, I think that's the next step, right, Melissa?
She really didn't want to answer you. She left.
Did she leave?
With a note saying she had to drop.
But she did nod before she left.
Uh,
Who can blame her? Okay, cool.
Do you need a DRI, an engineer for this, John?
We'll need to make an estimation of what's involved, yeah, but don't feel obliged, Eugenia, since you're, I think,
No,
already
I was
across
just
several different
asking
topics.
because it wasn't obvious. No, I wasn't going to. No, I wasn't going to volunteer this time. I don't think I can commit to that.
Yeah, no worries. Yes, but for clarity, we'll need a technical DRI to actually do the work, but I think Donald or I could probably estimate it if we can't get one in time. I don't know. Donald, you probably do a better job than I would.
no, I doubt that. But yeah, like the core syncing DRIs and the older workstream DRIs, let's keep everyone that's technically focusing on that stuff, focusing on that stuff. And then because the other stuff is mainly just like management, project management type stuff that needs to be done and hurting and less technical stuff. So
Yeah, I think I can help out on the technical stuff if you need like thinking through like the steps that need to be done. And I'm not a DRI of the other work streams, so
Gotcha, Heinrich. I'm assigning this one to you. Good man. Hey, Jackie, you've an item here.
Yeah, this is a question more for Amanda. Because I was looking at the Epic with the different options, and so I was just wondering, depending on what the questions are and what we want to learn from users. Melissa was talking about look and feel, certain usability of like some of the changes, like maybe we could just do a quick user study.
Yeah, I had actually suggested that instead of the preview to Melissa, and she said that was already scheduled. It was part of an OKR for us. So that's why I left it out, because I thought it wasn't a question whether we were doing it. It was already decided that we were doing it.
Okay, well, maybe we're talking a little bit about the same thing, but differently. There's like the UX bash, the kind of bug bash, but that would be internally with us. And then
I
there
asked her
is,
for a moderated usability study.
okay, I'm now aware of that then. So maybe we haven't like synced that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about it because I didn't know we were doing that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think we are done with all the discussions. Thanks a lot, everyone. Lots of productive decisions taken. Yep. Bye.